There are moments, quiet, inexplicable moments, when someone enters your life not with thunder, but with the soft gravity of a star being born. You may not know why they came, nor understand the silences between you, yet something ancient in your spirit recognizes them. Like the echo of a song you've never heard, but somehow remember. In the tapestry of existence, threads do not cross by accident. The universe is not careless with its weaving. What feels like stillness is often sacred preparation. What seems like distance is sometimes divine choreography. And perhaps, just perhaps, that person you're tempted to release is not meant to be let go, but held with reverence, like a sacred page in the story of your becoming. For in this vast, pulsing cosmos, there are souls who are not detours or delays, they are destinations in disguise. Sometimes the soul clings not out of fear, but because it remembers a promise written before time began. You know, life has a curious way of arranging things without consulting us. People drift in, sometimes so softly we hardly notice them at first. And yet something about their presence feels inevitable. Like they didn't just arrive, they returned. As if you knew them long before you ever met. Have you felt that? That strange familiarity, that gravitational pull you can't quite explain. We like to believe we choose our relationships, don't we? That we're the ones steering the ship. But what if, just what if, some people are not chosen but sent, not by fate in the poetic sense, but by something deeper. Call it the divine, the eternal, the pulse that breathes through all things. It weaves lives together with a kind of deliberate softness, not unlike how rivers meet in silence. Not every encounter is loud. Some arrive in whispers. Some arrive with questions instead of answers. And sometimes the person you're being asked to keep close doesn't make perfect sense to your logic. They may not align with your plans, your timing, or even your current capacity to understand love. Yet, there they are, consistently, quietly, like a page in your life that refuses to be turned just yet. You see, there are sacred appointments we don't remember making, but our souls do. And when those appointments are honored, something remarkable begins to unfold. You begin to see that this person, this soul, is not just part of your life scenery. They are woven into the architecture of your becoming. They challenge you, soften you, remind you. They pull out versions of you that only they seem to unlock. And even in their distance, even when it's hard, something in you stays connected, not out of attachment, but out of remembrance. The mind will try to make sense of it all. It will ask, why are they here? Or why haven't they left? But the mind is not equipped to interpret soul agreements. The heart, however, the heart knows. The heart hears what words never said. It recognizes the divine fingerprints on a connection long before the intellect catches up. And sometimes that recognition isn't about fireworks. It's about stillness. It's about a quiet knowing that this person is part of your blueprint. We tend to treat relationships as conditional, temporary, transactional. But every so often, life gifts us with someone who doesn't fit those molds. Someone whose presence can't be measured by duration or logic or the frequency of their words. They are simply meant not to fix you, not to complete you, but to walk with you through something sacred, perhaps even beyond this lifetime's understanding. Now, does that mean things will always be smooth? Of course not. The divine does not promise ease. It promises purpose, and sometimes The soul you're being led to keep close will test every edge of your patience, your ego, your wounds. But that testing is not punishment. It's alchemy. It's transformation. It's the sacred fire that forges connection into something unbreakable, even if the world around it crumbles. So when you feel that pull towards someone that defies reason, pause. Don't dismiss it. Sit with it. Not in fear, not in urgency, but in wonder. For some relationships are not interruptions to your journey. They are the journey. And in those rare and beautiful instances, you are not the one holding on. You are simply honoring the thread that was never meant to break. It's strange, isn't it? How silence can feel louder than words. You sit with someone, or perhaps you don't even sit with them anymore. And in that space where conversation once lived, there is only the quiet hum of something unsaid. We often take that silence as absence, as the fading of meaning, as proof that what once was is no longer. But I wonder, what if the silence is not a void but a vessel? You see, in this vast, unfolding experience we call life, not everything meaningful is loud. In fact, the most significant shifts often happen in stillness. Think of the stars, they explode in silence. The tides pulled by a moon that never utters a word. Trees grow quietly. So does love. So do souls. We've been conditioned to equate presence with noise, texts, calls, affirmations, constant declarations. But the soul doesn't communicate that way. It speaks in frequency, not volume. It speaks through resonance, not repetition. When someone important grows quiet, our reflex is fear. They're gone. We think they don't care anymore. But what if that quiet is not departure, but transformation? What if in that sacred pause, something deeper is occurring? Beneath the surface, beyond comprehension. We live in a culture obsessed with closure, with certainty, with clarity wrapped in neat little boxes. But the divine rarely works through clean lines. It works through mystery, ambiguity, timing we don't always understand. You might be in a season where the person you're being led to hold onto feels far away. They may not be saying the things they used to say. They may even seem unsure themselves. And that's deeply uncomfortable because we crave validation. We want evidence of love. But I'd like to suggest something softer, something less linear. Perhaps that distance isn't a sign that the bond is dissolving. Perhaps it's breathing. Every connection, like every living thing, needs space to grow. And sometimes that growth doesn't look like closeness. Sometimes it looks like waiting, like trusting, like believing in the unseen. When God is involved in the weaving of two souls, He does not rush. He does not fill every silence with noise. He allows space for sacred unfolding, for stretching, for the kind of preparation that requires solitude. And so, rather than panicking in the silence, I invite you to listen more deeply to it. Let the silence be a teacher. What is it revealing about your expectations, your fears, your sense of worth? Because often, the silence is not just between you and them, it's within you, a mirror, an echo, a call to listen not to what is missing, but to what is becoming. The truth is, some of the most powerful movements in a relationship happen when nothing appears to be moving at all. It's like music. You can't have melody without pause, without space between notes. It's just noise. The silence is part of the song, and some souls are composing something far too sacred to rush. So don't be so quick to label the quiet as an ending. Don't assume that distance is dismissal. Sometimes silence is the sacred breath between verses of a much larger poem. It's the space where God is still working, not just in them, but in you. And if you're being led to keep them close, despite the silence, despite the unknown, then honor that leading, not with clinging, not with desperate striving, but with reverent presence, with the kind of stillness that says, I trust the timing, I trust the weaving, I trust that even in the silence, we are not lost, we are becoming, because in the quiet spaces of love, there is still a voice. And the soul hears what the ears never will. Isn't it fascinating how we imagine we are here only to heal, to resolve, to fix something broken? We treat life like a hospital, people like prescriptions, and love as a kind of therapy. And while healing has its place, it is sacred. Even, it is not the only reason two souls find each other. There are some connections that go far beyond the idea of healing. They are not meant to complete us or even repair us, but to activate something dormant, something ancient, something already whole. You might feel this with a certain person, not because they soothe your pain or always know the right words to say, but because in their presence you remember yourself, not the version others trained you to become, not the identity polished for acceptance, but the raw, unfiltered being beneath it all. They don't fix you, they ignite you. And in that ignition, you begin to see who you've always been before the world told you otherwise. We've misunderstood the role of divine connections. They're not always smooth, comforting, or emotionally predictable. In fact, they're often messy. They stir things up. They touch the sacred bruises we've kept hidden and somehow awaken a deeper light at the same time. That's the paradox. They make you feel more vulnerable and more powerful, often in the same breath. So when you're being led to keep someone close, it might not be because they're a balm. It might be because they are a mirror. Not a mirror of who you were in your woundedness, but of who you are in your becoming. They reflect the edge of your next evolution. That's why it's not always easy. It's not meant to be. You see, healing can be solitary. You can go off into the woods, meditate, write in journals, take deep breaths. But activation, that soul-sparking, breath-catching reality, shifting kind of awakening, that happens in relationship. That happens when someone enters your field and suddenly you feel your old stories crumbling. You can't pretend anymore. You can't perform anymore. They pull something real from you without even trying. And that kind of connection, it's divine. It's orchestrated because it doesn't just affect you. It reverberates through the entire web of life. When one person wakes up to themselves, they ripple that awakening outward. So imagine what happens when two souls do it together, even if they're stumbling, even if they're unsure. That, my friends, is holy ground. That is sacred fire. So don't look at the presence of conflict or confusion as failure. Look deeper. Is this person pushing you toward the truth of yourself? Are they even unknowingly calling forth your integrity, your courage, your softness? If so, it may be that your bond is not here to heal an old version of you. It's here to usher in the next. And of course, this kind of connection may not be easily understood by others. It won't always make sense on paper. But your soul knows. You'll feel it, not in a way that's frantic or desperate, but in a way that's undeniable. Like two flames recognizing they came from the same fire. The mind might say, it shouldn't be this hard. But the soul replies, it's not hard, it's holy. There's a difference. And you'll know the difference not by the comfort it brings, but by the truth it awakens. So when you're tempted to let go because the road feels uncertain, pause. Ask yourself not, is this easy? But rather, is this expanding me? Because some people enter your life not to smooth the path, but to remind you that you are the path. And walking beside them, even when it's unclear, is part of your sacred unfolding. Because the ones who awaken your soul are not detours. They are the direction. There's something profoundly mysterious about timing. Not the ticking of the clock or the calendar's quiet procession, but the deeper rhythm, the invisible cadence by which life truly moves. And if you've paid close attention, you'll notice that this rhythm rarely aligns with your plans. We are conditioned to think in timelines, milestones, predictable arcs. By now, I should know. By now, we should be further along. We create narratives of how things ought to unfold. And when they don't match the script, we panic. We assume something is wrong. We assume we missed a sign, or worse, that we're wasting time. But time, in the divine sense, is never wasted. It is sculpted. What if the delays and detours are not mistakes, but invitations? What if the space between you and another, those long pauses, the misaligned moments, the near misses and almosts, are not signs that the connection is failing, but that it's still forming? Not in front of you necessarily, but within you, within them, in the unseen layers where souls are softened, shaped, and stretched to hold something greater than they could before. There are people you are meant to walk with, but not always immediately. Sometimes they show up too early, not because the connection is wrong, but because it is right, and the rightness requires preparation. Two people may be aligned in essence, but misaligned in readiness, and in that gap, the ego will shout, let it go, move on, but the soul will whisper, wait, there's more. You can feel it, can't you? That ache of incompletion that doesn't feel like failure. That stillness that isn't an ending, but a breath being held. Something not gone, just not yet. That's the pulse of divine timing. Now, waiting doesn't mean idling. It doesn't mean grasping or obsessing or suspending your life in the hope that someone else will catch up. That's not faith. That's fear wearing hope like a mask. No, real waiting, the kind born from alignment with the divine rhythm, it is deeply alive. It's the kind of waiting that becomes a becoming. You grow, you deepen. You become the version of yourself who can truly hold what you're waiting for. Because the truth is, the delay is rarely about the other person. It's about you. It's about who you're being shaped into. And if you're being led to keep someone close in your heart, even without certainty, even without clarity, then that leading is not about fixing the relationship. It's about preparing you for it. For love that can stand the fire and not just the sunshine. And here's the paradox. The more you trust the timing, the less desperate you become. The more you surrender the need to force outcomes, the more clearly you begin to feel the sacred pulse underneath everything. The divine metronome. The rhythm that governs not just the falling of rain or the blooming of flowers, but the unfolding of human connection too. There's a reason you feel led to keep this person close, even when logic says to let go. And it's not just nostalgia. It's not just attachment. It's the soul recognizing that there's more to this story. that something unfinished still has a purpose. That even if it's not time yet, it's still sacred now. So hold space, not for the fantasy of what could be, but for the reality of what is becoming. Let love evolve on its own schedule, not yours. Trust that if the connection is meant to flourish, no force on earth can stop it. And if it is still delayed, it is not a punishment, it is precision. Because when love is real, it doesn't rush. It remembers. It's a curious thing how silence, distance, or disconnection can so quickly be mistaken for endings. We live in a world addicted to noise, to affirmation, to signs that something is still alive. And so when someone pulls away, goes quiet, or drifts beyond the familiar edges of our connection, we assume it must be over, that the bond has broken, that we are being rejected or forgotten. But what if silence is not absence? What if distance isn't a departure, but a deepening? You see, not all growth is visible. Not all love is loud. In fact, some of the most powerful transformations happen in the dark, beneath the surface, behind closed doors, in the quiet places where words would only get in the way. When the caterpillar enters the chrysalis, it doesn't send status updates. It disappears. To the outside eye, it looks like nothing is happening. But within, a metamorphosis is unfolding. And people are no different. Sometimes the one you are meant to walk beside must first walk away. Not because the connection is over, but because they are being rearranged, dismantled, refined if you have truly been divinely led to keep them close. Not through clinging, but through inner knowing. Then this space is not rejection, it's initiation. You must learn to trust the bond even when it doesn't look how you expected it to. Love, real love, transcends form. It is not made fragile by silence. It doesn't crumble at the edge of uncertainty. If the connection is spiritual, then it exists beyond time and proximity. It breathes through unseen threads that stretch farther than geography, deeper than conversation. This is where most people falter. They equate closeness with constant contact. But intimacy isn't always about frequency. It's about resonance. And if that resonance is still alive in you, if that person still appears in your thoughts like a sacred echo, if your heart expands at their name, even in their absence, then the connection is not dead. It's simply resting, recalibrating. There is a wisdom in letting someone wander without assuming they are lost. Just as there is wisdom in waiting without needing to be reassured. We forget that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is not reach out, not chase, not demand clarity, but to simply hold space with quiet devotion. It is a radical kind of love, to remain open without being passive, grounded without being possessive, to stand still in your soul and say, I don't know where you are or who you're becoming, but I trust the thread between us. That is love with spine. Love that listens to the deeper music. Of course, this isn't easy. The ego wants closure, answers, guarantees. It fears the unknown. But the soul is patient. It knows that the things which are real are never truly lost. They simply move through cycles, through seasons. Like the moon, disappearing for a time, only to return fuller and more luminous than before. So if you're in a chapter of silence, of not knowing, don't rush to label it. Don't mourn a death that hasn't happened. Instead, turn inward. Feel the connection in your own being. Nurture it there. Trust that if it is divine, it will return, not as a repetition of the past, but as a resurrection. And in the meantime, remember, distance does not diminish meaning. Absence does not cancel purpose. Some bonds do their most sacred work in the quiet, far from the noise of daily interaction. They are like stars, separated by light years, yet still part of the same constellation. Because when a connection is written in spirit, silence is never the end. It's the breath between verses. We often forget that we are not solitary notes in the melody of life. We are chords, harmonies, part of a vast and interwoven music that plays far beyond the comprehension of our logical minds. And so, when someone enters our lives in a way that stirs us deeply, we must understand that it is not random, not incidental. It is the sound of two frequencies meeting in perfect time, guided by a hand far subtler than anything we could manipulate. Yet, in our effort to make sense of things, we cling to what is visible. We want reasons. We want to know why someone came, what it means, and how it ends. But this, of course, is the very mistake. We are not here to decode the entire score before it is played. We are here to listen, to feel the rhythm as it unfolds. And some connections, well, they're not meant to be resolved. They are meant to be revered. You see, there is a quiet knowing in the soul that doesn't argue with the mind. It doesn't demand clarity or reassurance. It simply says, this person, not because they are perfect, not because the path is easy, but because something inside recognizes not as a passing figure in the fog, but as a thread you were always meant to follow, even if the road is unclear. That's the real mystery of it, isn't it? That the people we're meant to keep close aren't always the ones who make the most sense. They may trigger us, challenge us, confuse us. Sometimes they feel like friction, like mirrors we didn't ask for. And yet, underneath all of it, there is something else. A pull. A sense of home not defined by comfort, but by truth. And if you listen closely, you'll hear it, that gentle pulse that keeps drawing you back, no matter how far you stray. Not out of obsession, not out of desperation, but out of divine alignment. That kind of connection doesn't vanish. It may evolve, it may go through seasons of silence, as we've said, but it never truly leaves. Because it is not born of convenience. It is born of soul. Perhaps this is what it means to be led, not with maps or certainty, but with trust. With an awareness that sometimes you are not the one doing the choosing. Sometimes you are being chosen, or rather, you both are. Chosen by something greater, and your only task is not to force or control, but to surrender. And that's the hardest part, surrender. We are so conditioned to chase, to fix, to define. But in the realm of spirit, love is not something you build, it's something you remember. A recognition, not a construction. And sometimes all you're asked to do is stay. Not physically always, but energetically, emotionally, with an open palm and an unguarded heart. Because there is someone you are meant to carry with you. Not as a burden, not as an answer, but as a flame. A quiet presence that continues to warm you even when they're not beside you. They are not an accident. They are a part of your path, not a detour, not a mistake, but a sacred thread in the larger design of your becoming. And it may not make sense to anyone else. It doesn't have to. This is the beauty of the cosmic dancing. It's choreographed in silence and felt in stillness. And if you feel moved to keep them close, not out of fear, but out of reverence, then trust that feeling. It is the language of the divine speaking through your own heart. For in the end, it is not logic that guides us home, but love. and the unmistakable of something we were always meant to hold.